Already.
Good morning, and thank you for being here with us today. My name is Linda Vega. For the last 2 years, I've been traveling across this great state of Texas, meeting with fellow Texans of all walks of life, from Lubbock to Abilene to Dallas, from Houston to Austin to San Antonio to El Paso, Corpus Christi, Laredo, and the Rio Grande Valley. In all of those visits, I met with hardworking people who are proud of their state. People like business owners, cattle ranchers, oil laborers, teachers, police officers, and students. They're all working toward the dream of living in a country and a state that believes in the freedom of enterprise, hard work, and limited government. I found that their story is my story. I was born in Westlaco, Texas, a small town by the border. Through hard work and great determination, my 9 siblings and I learned early on that the American dream was ours to earn, and it started with a good education. It wasn't easy living by the border, but the freedom and opportunities offered by our great state opened the door to a life that most thought almost impossible. I attended and graduated from the University of Texas in Austin and the George Washington Law School in Washington, D.C. I am a mother and a small business owner. I have learned to respect and understand the earning that my parents talked about growing up, much like the conservative principles that I embrace and that are found and echoed in the Republican Party. I realize that my trips and in talking to Texans that we all want to do something to help rebuild America. We all want to have a positive impact that will help to make this country strong again. And that is, we all want to rebuild this great country into the country of strong and prosperous people. Whether you are a male, a female, a student, a retiree of any creed or race, living in the great state of Texas makes everyone feel proud of their work, the state government, our communities, our churches, and our families. We Texans know that what makes us stand out and prosper is hard work, and not some government program. Texas leads the way, and we can lead this nation back to prosperity. You see, in Texas, we don't have state income taxes because we don't think that self-worth comes from the government. In Texas, we believe that the power comes from the individual, from hard work, and the private sector. Small businesses are often the first start to the road to prosperity for many immigrants who come here in search of the American dream. And Texas is strong because of Texans like you. The strength of Texas in America, therefore, is not because of the growth of government, but due to the strength of its people. Let me say that again. The strength of Texas and America is not because of the growth of government, but due to the strength of its people. So when I look at Texas, I see success and pride in our state. But when I turn my head to Washington, all I see is a failed big government that keeps spending money it simply doesn't have. I see politicos who keep blaming each other for their failure. I see Washington politicos who feel that they're entitled to their political positions, even if they don't represent the interests of Texas, nor do they do anything that helps Texas. I see politicians who come to Texas and they promise to protect your freedoms, then they go back to Washington, have these secret meetings with special interest groups who have absolutely no interest in helping Texas businessmen, Texas ranchers, mothers who want a better education for their children. So when I look at DC, I see failure after failure after failure. politicians from our own state who feel so entitled to their political position that one week they tell you they're for something, but the following week they're against the same thing that they supported. But then that's what they do over there. In Washington, D.C., all their failure and political bickering makes you wonder which one's the Republican and which one's the Democrat, because they both waste your money and have caused Congress to fail. When I look at Washington, D.C., I see an Obama administration that keeps growing the government with bad laws, like Obamacare, Dodd-Frank, and the EPA. These laws have hurt our families and businesses in Texas. And they hide the fact that these big government policies have failed us. Obamacare must be defunded, and it must also be repealed, but with real alternatives that will not penalize families or businesses. New laws must help control the cost of health care, which will revamp Medicaid, but without hurting our seniors who are already on Medicare and Social Security. Congress and the Obama administration are failures, and they're part of the same DC animal that is eating the future of our children with insurmountable debt of $17 trillion. In Washington, D.C., they don't have the same values we have here in Texas. In Washington, D.C., they believe in entitlements and in spending money they don't have. They believe in limiting your freedom and curtailing the ability of the private sector to create jobs. But when I look to Texas, I see success, and we must continue toward that path. Texas leads the way, and we must continue to create free trade, to create an educated labor force for our future. America needs an immigration reform, an immigration system that stops penalizing businesses. We need to expand our free trade, especially in oil and gas, with friendly nations like Canada and Mexico, who will free us from the hostile nations in the Middle East who want our money but hate our freedoms. We need to develop more trade relations based on natural resources, because Texas sits at the heart of the natural corridor that can create millions of more jobs for Texas and the U.S. 7 of the top 10 cities for job growth are here in Texas, and that's something we should be proud of. As our population doubles in the next 30 years, we need to have an educated population, and we need to create more jobs for that population. I'm a strong believer of the Reagan ideals that hard work is what determines the character of who you are. And in Texas, we work hard, and that's why our character is strong. Our success is because of a strong Republican leadership led by Governor Rick Perry and the Republican legislature. So we must protect what works here in Texas from the Washington, D.C. failures. We must protect Texas freedom, citizens, the businesses, from an overreaching big federal government. In Texas, we're a free people, and we will fight hard to make sure that Obama and his policies don't infringe and take away our freedoms. Lately, when I look around, I see 2 Americas, one with hard-working people, limited government, and free enterprise, and that's mostly found in the Texas that I love. On the other hand, I see a bureaucratic mess in Washington, D.C., spending money that isn't there. And that's why Americans are angry. And who can blame us? So today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm announcing that I'm running for the U.S. Senate from Texas as a Republican. As your senator from Texas, I will put the country first, and I will defend our freedoms in Texas. The badge of honor that I wear is not about partisan politics, but one about putting the country first. We need a new, fresh voice that will be true to our liberties and the America of greatness, not one of an unproductive rhetoric. Today I ask for your support, and I promise to work hard and represent the ideals that have made Texas a success. We can build and rebuild this nation together. And a way to start that rebuilding is to bring Texas values of personal responsibility, limited government to Washington, D.C. America used to be a land of hope and inspiration, and we need to rebuild that. Washington, D.C. needs a red state model on education, economic growth, low taxes, and pro-business. We need an immigration reform based on labor demands. And we need to make sure that Washington stops spending money of the future generations of Texans and Americans. There's nothing worse than a parent who worries about the future of their child and the future generations and what they will not have. We're on the crash course of disaster. And if we don't change it, it'll be too late soon. As your U.S. Senator from Texas, I will put America first. And I will always proudly carry Texas in my heart. Thank you.